Hey, good evening, ladies and gentle drunks. My name is Kevin Olson. I'm a recovered alcoholic.
Kevin?
Very pleased to be here. I want to welcome you all to the Fourth Dimension. Big book study, that is. Really glad you guys are all here. I know I'm glad I'm here, and this is I never feel more alive than when I am sharing the message of Alcoholics Anonymous. Thank you for being here. Let's share the message of Alcoholics Anonymous together tonight, shall we? So as we always do, well, first of all, we will begin with the set-aside prayer, which goes a little something like this. Sing along if you know it. God, please help me to set aside everything I think I know about you, about me, about my fellow man, about the 12 steps, and please allow me to gain a fresh new vision, perspective, understanding of what you, what me, what my fellow man, and the 12 steps are all about. All right. And as this is the Fourth Dimension Big Book study, I always love to read the two passages from our book that refer to the fourth dimension. So first, on page 8 in Bill's story, it says, I was soon to be catapulted into what I like to call the fourth dimension of existence. I was to know happiness, peace, and usefulness in a way of life that is incredibly more wonderful as time passes. And then, on page 25, Bill Wilson writes, that. Oh, sorry, just 1 second. We have found much of heaven, and we have been rocketed into a fourth dimension of existence of which we had not even dreamed. So, our book tells us we're going to be catapulted. We're going to be rocketed. And for the sake of custom and tradition of the fourth dimension big book study, for all who will, everybody please put one hand up like this. Everybody please put another hand up like this. And everybody go, oh yeah. We absolutely insist on enjoying life. That's what our book says. Okay, we are not a glum lot. And I absolutely insist on enjoying life. I'm going to have fun tonight. I hope you guys have fun tonight. And let's get into it, guys. So as discussed, I'm in Houston, Texas tonight, and I'll be in Houston for a couple of weeks. So I'll be here next Tuesday, this tonight, and then next Tuesday as well. And I don't want to venture much further past step 4, so I'm not going to push through to try and get into step 5. And I think it'll be much better. Next week, we will do steps 5, 6, and 7. And we'll do that together in an hour. So for tonight, what I want to do is just a little bit of a review on step 4, or rather on fear inventory, just because I feel like we kind of squeezed it in last week a little bit, and some may have some questions about it. Then we're going to get into sex conduct, and we'll talk about that. We'll talk about how to do a sex conduct inventory, and then really we'll see how much time is left, and we may open it up to some questions or so on. So with that said, though, I need a reader tonight. Now, I know, Vincent, I often ask you to read, but I'm going to see, and I would like you to read, Vincent, but I want to offer it to Ronan, if Ronan is there, if he's available to read. He may not be able to, but he's done it for us before, and I just want to share the love, Vincent, if that's okay with you.
Sorry, Kevin, I double booked myself tonight. I'm volunteering at the DI, so I just can just listen in tonight. I can't read.
There's only one excuse that would supersede reading the big book tonight, and that is volunteering at a homeless shelter. Okay, you're volunteering at a homeless shelter. That is acceptable, and yeah, that's great, Ronan. That's great. That's I love that, man. So Vincent, then, if I haven't completely hurt your feelings, would you be kind enough to read for us?
I'd be happy to, Kevin. That's great.
You could also tell me to get stuffed if you want to.
No,
You
no
know,
worries.
you want to hear something funny? You guys want to hear something funny? You want to hear a little bit of big book folklore? So most of us know that Bill Wilson wrote the chapter Two Wives, right? Most of us know that. It's not a big secret, but some people don't know why. And the reason why is that he originally asked Anne Smith, Dr. Bob's wife, to write it, and she decided, no, I don't know enough about it. I'm not a good writer, so I would prefer not to do it. Why don't you go ask Lois? And then he went to go ask Lois, and Lois said, I'm not going to be your silver medal. You ask me to be your second choice to write Two Wives. She was so angry that she wouldn't do it. So anyway, that's the story that I've heard. I can't say for sure that that is a true story. I can say for sure that it is true that that is a story. I can tell you that. So anyway, I've heard that one before. So anyway, let's Vincent, if you would be so kind to read for us. Now, the first thing I want to do, guys, you can tell I don't have my regular whiteboard here and so on. But what I want to do is share this tonight. So just to refresh on step 4, this is how we're setting up the columns. Okay, 1 line through the center, 2 lines across the top. Column 1, column 2, column 3, column 4. Give me a thumbs up, Vincent. Can you see that I'm moving my cursor right now? Can you see that I'm moving the mouse? Can you see that?
Yeah.
The hand, and okay, wonderful. So I can, if I say column 1 and then I say column 2, you can see that?
Yeah.
Okay, and I wonder if there is a Rob, do you know, is there anything that I can do to share on the screen so it's more than just a cursor, like a big red dot or anything like that, and how I would put that up? Do you know how to do that?
I'm sorry, Kevin, no. Is there anybody else that might have better information? Afraid not, Kevin. I will I'll put in some information. I'll put some feelers out to get, see if I can find out later on.
Yeah, no problem, no problem at all. Not a major one, as long as you guys can see see that I'm moving this here and it's visible for you. I just want to be able to indicate these. So, okay, so you know, just to be for a complete refresh, for resentments, column 1, who we listed people, principles, or things with whom we were resentful. Who am I angry at? Who's column 1? Okay, that's who we put there. Column 2, we asked ourselves, why are we angry? Column 3, how does that affect me? Okay, and if you're here and you're new, by the way, you're new to the Big Book Study, I want to welcome you. And if you're like, whoa, slow down, he's rushing through all this. We've spent the last couple of weeks going through this. You can go onto YouTube and go listen to some of the previous ones and get a catch up there. But I just want to refresh this. So column 1, who? Column 2, why? Column 3, how does it affect me? Between column 3, column 4, we have the prayer that we say, the step 4 anger prayer, if you will, page 67 and page 552. Then in column 4, where am I to blame in terms of this resentment? Okay, as just a reminder, I should have mentioned this. In a step 4 in Alcoholics Anonymous, we look at the 3 common manifestations of self. That is, we look at resentment, we look at fear, and we look at sex conduct. Those are 3 separate inventories that encompasses step 4. Tonight, we're going to refresh on resentment. We're going to do a little quick refresh on fear, and then we're going to do I will teach sex conduct tonight, how we do a sex conduct inventory. So for resentments, column 1, who? Column 2, why? Column 3, affects my, how does it affect me? Column 4, prayer, page 67, page 552. Then column 4, where am I to blame? Where am I to blame in the past? Go back and look at page 62. What decisions based on self did I make that put me in this position to be hurt? Then I'm also going to look in the mirror. Okay. Our book says, putting out of our minds the wrongdoings of others, we resolutely look for our own part, which is to say the very thing that I'm judging this person for, that I resent this person for, am I guilty of the same thing? Could I be guilty of the same thing? I'm angry at this person for lying to me. Hey, have I ever told a lie before? Yeah, I have. Okay. Hey, this person stole from me. It's like, have I ever stolen from anyone? Or am I capable potentially of stealing from someone? Of course. And in that way, we begin to build compassion. And then lastly, we look at where am I to blame in this resentment today? To what extent am I using this resentment as a justification for my continued poor behavior? In what way am I rationalizing? In what way am I victimizing myself? In what way have I become my own abuser relative to this resentment that I might have? Okay. So that's resentment, the first common manifestation of self. Secondly, fear. We talked about this last week. Column 1, what is the fear? What am I afraid of? And remember, we talked about self-centered fear. Okay. What is this fear that I have of what people think of me, whether or not people will like me? Why am I so obsessed with other people's approval? I'm afraid I'm not going to get their approval. I'm afraid I'm not going to be liked. Okay. Remember, we talked about the 3 things that people can fear. Number 1, I'm afraid I'm going to lose something I have. Number 2, I'm afraid that I'm not going to get something that I want. And number 3, I'm afraid that I've done something I shouldn't have done and I'm going to get caught. We discussed what is the common denominator in all 3 of those fears? Me. Okay. I talked about this last week. Very rarely do I sit around worried and afraid about what's going to happen to you. Okay. No, I sit around alone at home, terrified of what's going to happen to me. Okay. And in that sense, selfishness and self-centeredness really is the root of my trouble. Bill Wilson, when we get to step 6 and 7, Bill Wilson would say that self-centered fear is the chief activator of our defects. Okay. Self-centered fear. Okay. And resentment may be the number 1 offender. Okay. And it kills alcoholics, but self-centered fear is the chief activator of all of our defects. So that's the bad news. The good news is we have a way out. We have a way out, not just of drinking. We have found, our book gives us, God has given us a way out of fear. We no longer have to feel that way. I have discovered a higher level of mental comfort and an escape from the tortures of the mind. Okay? Which is not to say that I don't still suffer from time to time from the tortures of the mind, but I have found overall a tool that I can use when I choose to, when I want to access this power that can overcome my fear and help me to outgrow fear. Okay, is what our book says. We outgrow fear. We overcome our childish nature. Okay, because really 2 of the defining characteristics of alcoholism are childishness and defiance. Okay, we're emotionally, Harry Tiebout would say we're overly sensitive and we're emotionally immature. My great-grandfather, my grand sponsor Clancy used to say that we can have adult abilities, adult intelligence, adult social graces, all at the beck and call of a child's emotions. Okay. And our book says that we begin to outgrow fear. We outgrow these childish fears of me. What's going to happen to me? Okay. Poor me. What's going to happen to me? Okay. So column 1, what am I afraid of? Okay. We need to shine a light on it and name it and be able to recognize what that fear is when I'm getting tangled up in the world and I feel uncomfortable, when I begin to feel discomfort, when I begin to feel dis-ease with life. People say alcoholism is a disease. I feel at dis-ease with life. When I feel that feeling, I have to be able to stop and pause and say, oh, I'm afraid right now. Okay, what am I afraid of? Well, typically I'm afraid of being judged or not being approved or what people are going to think, or getting hurt or being financially insecure, whatever it is, on and on and on. Column 1, write down the fear. Column 2, why do we have the fear? Okay, and don't overthink it. We just write, we ask ourselves why we had this fear. Okay, so column 1, what is the fear? Column 2, we ask ourselves why we had this fear. Okay, and in fact, hang on one second. I took a picture of this. This will be even better. Sorry, everyone. I just remembered that There it is. Perfect. Thanks to Greg Alto, who often comes to this study. I took a picture of this last week, and I will be able to. Okay, just hang with me 1 second. This will all make sense in a moment. So column 2, we're just going to write down, we're not going to overthink it. We're just going to write down why we asked ourselves why we were angry. Okay. And then column 3, what our book says is, wasn't it because self-reliance failed us? So the answer to the question, why am I afraid, is why do we have these fears? It's because self-reliance has failed us. Can you see this image of the whiteboard now, or am I still sharing the other, the same image I was sharing before?
Still sharing where you were sharing before. Now it's
Okay,
not sharing.
now I'm not sharing, and now what you will see is the whiteboard just from last week, because I took a picture of this. Okay, so brilliant. So column 1, what am I afraid of? Column 2, why am I afraid? Column 3, how has self-reliance failed me? Again, guys, the way that I look at this, I take the most drunken, drug-addicted, sick, selfish version of Kevin, which is exactly who I will become if I am relying on myself without Alcoholics Anonymous, without the power of God in my life. No question, guys. And this isn't some theoretical thing, and by the way, I want to be clear, this is not something that can happen to you. This is what will happen to me if I begin to rely on self and not rely on God's will and the direction of a sponsor and Alcoholics Anonymous and the dictates of a higher power lined out in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. If I start to do things Kevin's way, I will find myself in great trouble. Okay. And I will become the most drunken, drug addicted, sick, selfish, self-centered version of myself possible. And we talked about how we look at whatever the fear is, how me being this guy relates to the fear. Okay. So if my fear is rejection, if I live this way, if I live as a drunken, drug addicted, sick, selfish, dishonest, selfish, self-pitying human being, the worst possible version of myself, I'm right to have this fear of rejection. People are absolutely going to reject me. If I'm afraid of financial insecurity, that's my fear. Well, guess what? Me living this way is going to result in me being financially insecure. Okay. The other thing about living this way is that when I'm relying on self, completely relying on self, my well-being depends on what I think you think of me. My well-being completely depends upon the opinions of fallible human beings. So I joked about this last week, but you know, what was my fear? My fear was going bald. I was feared for many years in inventories that I would do. I'm afraid of going bald. I was terrified of it. Okay. Why? Because my entire framework of a human being, I was an empty shell of a human being. And the only validation that I had is what you thought of me. And I thought, man, if I go bald, everyone, you know, I'm not going to be attractive and everyone's going to think I'm a loser, and, you know, on and on and on. That self-centered perception, that self-obsession was killing me. And that's what was causing the fear in the first place. So page 68, we have a prayer. Prayer simply says, God, please remove my fear and direct my attention towards what you're going to have me be. Okay. So if it's rejection, God, please remove my fear of rejection and direct my attention towards what you would have me be. Okay. And then it says, at once we commence to outgrow fear. We talked about this again. What would God have us be? Love and service. Okay. Love, yes, certainly. I think and how do we attain love? Certainly the application of our 12 steps, okay, allows us to develop a relationship with God where we become loving, not where we get loved, where we become loving. As St. Francis says, you know, God grant that I may seek to love rather than to be loved. The application of our 12 steps, we become loving, and then the final piece of the 12 steps. But really what I think is the crux of our entire program is to go be of service to someone else. Go see how I can be useful to another alcoholic, okay? And when I am afraid of something, and I am in my head terrified about whatever it is, if I will only say that prayer, God, please remove my fear of this situation and direct my attention towards what you would have me be, love and service. If I will go be of service to someone else, instantly the fear will be removed because I'm no longer centered on myself. I become thoughtful of you, and I'm thinking about you. And when I'm thinking about you, I'm not thinking about myself. And when I'm not thinking about myself, the problem has been removed, because the problem is self-centeredness. Does that make sense, you guys? The most dangerous place in the world is me sitting at home alone, obsessing about myself. Okay? And you all, everyone on this call knows what I'm talking about, man. The tortures of the mind, the catastrophe factory, working overtime, creating fears. Brothers and sisters, I don't know why, man. I'm the kind of guy that if I don't have something to be afraid of, I will start manufacturing things. Okay? If I'm not comfortable unless I'm worried. Okay? I don't know why it is, man, but it's uncomfortable. And living that way has a tendency to make a guy like me want to take a drink. Okay? And if I am going to stay sober, if I'm going to need to find a way to feel ease and comfort in sobriety. I am sober today. I'm an alcoholic who is currently not drinking and has not drank in nearly 16 years now. And that is because I have found in Alcoholics Anonymous the same thing that I was always looking for in alcohol, in the bottle. I found a way to feel ease and comfort in sobriety. Okay. And a big part of that is that when I am obsessed with myself, if I will just go think about someone else, the fear will be removed. Okay. So that is just this prayer. That is just simply me doing what I ought to do and going to do God's will. So now the column 4 for our fear inventory. And I'm going to ask my man, Vincent, to read this for us now. Hang on a second, Vincent. Where did I put that? Okay, we're going to be on page 68, guys. And we're going to read, perhaps there is a better way. Vincent, if you could read from there down to the second to last, the last paragraph there. Just read those 2 paragraphs, please. Perhaps there is a better way.
Yes. Thanks, Kevin. Perhaps there is a better way. We think so. For we are now on a different basis, the basis of trusting and relying upon God. We trust infinite God rather than our finite selves. We are in the world to play the role he assigns, just to the extent that we do as we think he would have us, and humbly rely on him, does he enable us to match calamity with serenity. We never apologize to anyone for depending upon our Creator. We can laugh at those who think spirituality the way of weakness. Paradoxically, it is the way of strength. The verdict of the ages is that faith means courage. All men of faith have courage. They trust their God. We never apologize for God. Instead, we let him demonstrate through us what he can do. We ask him to remove our fear and direct our attention to what he would have us be. At once, we commence to outgrow fear.
Okay, so what we just read, the last line that we just read, that is the step 4 fear prayer. Okay. The second last line, we ask him to remove our fear and direct our attention towards what he would have us be. Okay. So that's the step 4 fear prayer. And then as Vincent just read in the first paragraph, it says here, just to the extent that we do do as he would have us. Okay, you guys have heard me say many times, I believe the most important word in Alcoholics Anonymous is the word do. Okay, I believe it's more important than the word God, and I think God knows what I mean when I say that. Okay, because the only thing that accounts for anything in Alcoholics Anonymous, for me, the only thing that ever mattered are things that I did in AA. Wanting things never changed anything in my life. Doing things changed things in my life. Okay. AA didn't work for me when I wanted it, and AA did not work for me when I needed it. AA only worked for me when I do it. My problem is not that I don't know things. My problem is that I don't do things. So just to the extent that I do as God would have me and humbly rely on him, does he enable me to match calamity with serenity? Okay, calamity, disaster, serenity is responding to that calamity, that catastrophe, that disaster, most of which is manufactured anyway, but being able to respond to it with peace, okay, and calmness and serenity, and dealing with these things with a level of emotional sobriety and a level of adult maturity that most alcoholics do not have. We look like alcoholic. We look like rather adults. We look like adults. We look like alcoholics too, but we look like adults, don't we? We look like adults. And yet I have sponsored 60, 70-year-old men who had the emotions of children. Do you guys know what I'm saying? Do you guys know what I mean by that? And by the way, is it possible for me to have the emotions of a child? Absolutely. When I get crazy and sick and fearful and stressed and I'm not spiritually fit, and I'm not doing the things that I need to do, and I'm not taking care of myself, and I'm worn thin, you better believe I will start throwing tantrums. Okay. And that's not pretty when a grown man starts throwing emotional tantrums. Okay. Believe me. And I'm very pleased in my life that I don't do that, at least not in the way that I used to grow. And I'm not talking about drunk. I'm talking about with years of sobriety, throwing emotional tantrums. I don't have to behave that way. God enables me to match calamity with serenity, provided that I do his will and fully trust and rely on him. Okay. So now we're talking about the what I like to call the surface level and the deeper promise. So how would trusting God and doing his will remove the fear? Okay. At a surface level, me doing God's will is probably going to have a massive impact on whatever the fear is. Okay. So if my fear is financial insecurity, well, if I'm doing God's will, I'm probably maybe have a job, maybe showing up to the job, maybe getting a regular paycheck in, maybe starting to save some money, maybe getting on, what's that word adults use? Oh, right, a budget, maybe getting a budget. Okay, I'm not good at budgeting to this day. This friend of mine lives in Germany. He's a normie. He just sent me his whole thing. Like, I've made this much money since I've been in Germany, and I have this much money, and I spent this much on this, and this much on this, and this much on this. And he said, do you track these same things, Kevin? I thought, man, you got the wrong guy. I'd love to tell you that I live on a very itemized budget like that, but I don't. Maybe if I did, I wouldn't have any financial insecurity. Okay, because I believe that living in that type of way, doing those types of things, is probably going to put me in a better financial position. You know, Alcoholics Anonymous does not guarantee me more money, but Alcoholics Anonymous guarantees that I will feel better about the amount of money that I have. Alcoholics Anonymous does not guarantee me a better paying job, but Alcoholics Anonymous guarantees that I will feel better about the job that I have. You guys with me on that? Okay, because I'm doing better and I'm doing God's will. Okay, I'm doing God's will. If I'm doing God's will, it's probably going to have an impact on the situations that are causing the fear in the first place. If I'm afraid of rejection, well, hey, if I'm living God's will and I'm sober, first of all, like just that alone, I'm sober in Alcoholics Anonymous. That is surely God's will for me. Okay, and then I'm honest. and I'm trying to see how I can be of service to other people. And I'm trying to see what I can take from other people all the time, and so on and so forth. Probably I'm less likely to be rejected. But the deeper promise is that trusting God, even if I'm financially insecure, even if I get rejected, even if I didn't get the job that I wanted, even if the relationship ends, even if I know that I will be okay and I will be able to live in the fourth dimension. The fourth dimension does not require that I have material assets, or the fourth dimension does not require that I become anything. The fourth dimension requires only that I remove the things that are blocking me from that fourth dimension. And those things are the things, the lies that my mind tells me, the webs that my insanity will spin in my mind, and the fear that is created as a result of that. Removing those resentments, removing that fear. Okay, these are the things that get me connected to the fourth dimension. It does not matter who I am or what I have. It's not about becoming anything. It's about removing things. Does that make sense, you guys? Chuck Chamberlain used to talk about Alcoholics Anonymous is about discarding, uncovering, and discovering who we really are. Discarding, uncovering, and discovering who we really are. Okay, and this is not a program where we add things to ourselves. This is a program of letting go. Sandy Beach, great AA speaker, said if he was going to sum up AA in 2 words, it would be let go. Let go. We're letting go of these resentments. We're going to let go of these fears. Okay, and so the last thing I want to share with you guys about this is something that that I got from Chuck Chamberlain, or at least it was a talk that I had heard Chuck Chamberlain give, and I don't think I have the ability to pull open a whiteboard, so I just want you guys to just imagine what I'm doing right now. Okay, I just want you guys to imagine that I'm in front of a whiteboard. And again, this is my great grand sponsor, Chuck Chamberlain. Okay, I want you to imagine I'm drawing a big circle. Okay, can you guys see this right now? Okay, I'm drawing a big circle right now on a big whiteboard. Okay, and in that big circle, I'm writing the word God's will. Okay, so God's will in the big in the big circle. Okay, and then inside the big circle, I'm writing a little circle. Okay, little circle inside the big circle. And I'm writing an arrow to that little circle, and I'm writing Kevin's will. So little circle, Kevin's will, inside the big circle, God's will. You guys with me? For the rest of my life, all I need to do, the only thing I need to worry about, is keeping that little circle inside the big circle. The little circle of Kevin's will inside the big circle of God's will. If I keep the little circle inside the big circle, then I have nothing to fear. I have nothing to fear. It does not matter if I take the job, don't take the job, buy the house, don't buy the house, marry the woman, don't marry the woman, whatever. It does not matter. If I keep the little circle inside the big circle, all will be well. Okay? I really believe this in my heart. And I also believe the opposite. If I let that little circle get outside the big circle, then it does not matter. If I take the job, don't take the job, buy the house, don't buy the house, marry the girl, don't marry the girl. It does not matter. Everything is going to be a horrible mess, a horrible mess. And I will be living in self-will, and I will destroy everything. And I don't need to drink in order for that to happen. I just need to be living in untreated alcoholism, allowing my self-will to run riot. And I will start to, and I am right to have these fears, and I will start to step on the toes of my fellows, and they will retaliate seemingly without provocation. Okay. And that creates fear. Living that way creates fear. Okay. So with all of that said, guys, we are going to look now at the last common manifestation of self. And as I've said, what are the 3 common manifestations of self that we look at in a step 4? Resentment, fear, and lastly, sex conduct. Okay. Now, some people are apt to say that no, the last part, it's not really just sex conduct. It's actually about harms to others. It's not just sex, it's harms. It's like all your harms, right? And I disagree. Okay. Now, listen, if your sponsor tells you that the third thing you look at is harms to others in general, then your sponsor is right. Okay. And you do what your sponsor tells you to do. And I have no problem with that. I think, though, that it's pretty clear in our book what the next portion of this inventory is about. And in fact, Vincent will read just the first sentence on the last paragraph on page 68. 3 words, Vincent.
Now about sex.
I think it's pretty clear. I think it's pretty clear. I don't think there's a lot of ambiguity there into what the next portion of this inventory is about. Will you read that for us again, Vincent?
Now about sex.
I don't see where the confusion is, but some people take exception to this. So anyway, I believe the last portion of this book is or of this inventory is clear. It's about sex conduct. I was like, well, why do we look at sex conduct? I'll tell you 2 reasons. 2 reasons that I believe, and I've reflected on this a lot. The first is that what we're really trying to do is get a lens not into our behavior as much as the defects of character that are creating the behavior. Okay. And the defects of character within me that are causing harm. Okay. I don't know about y'all, but I never, ever intended to cause the harm that I caused to people. I did not want to cause the harm. I just wanted to feel better. That's all it was, man. I just was looking for a way to feel better. Okay. And living that way, in that selfish way of needing to feel better because I needed to soothe an inner internal condition, is very problematic and caused a lot of harm. In Alcoholics Anonymous, what we do is soothe and solve and invite God into our lives to fix that internal spiritual condition. In order for me to do that, I have to get real about it. And I have to look at what are the defects within me that are causing these harms in the first place. There is no better lens for me to look at how I hurt people with my defects of character than to look at my intimate sexual relationships. We have a unique opportunity to look into our intimate sexual relationships and see how we have caused harm. We get laser beam clarity, crystal clear examples of how we hurt people because the hurt is so real in sexual intimate relationships. And everyone on this call knows exactly what I'm talking about. Everyone on this call has hurt and been hurt. I know that. And so we know exactly how we're able to look into this, not to uncover our sex conduct as much as to get to the root of the problem: selfishness and self-centeredness. Okay. And so in this way, looking at our sex conduct allows us to see into these defects in a way that we can't any other way. That's reason number 1. Reason number 2, why do we look at sex conduct? I will tell you. Because if I was on, let's say, I was with one of my sponsees, and let's say we were in, let's say I'm Ronan. Ronan's one of my sponsees. Let's say Ronan and I were in a food court in a mall somewhere, okay? And I said to Ronan, Ronan, we're going to do your step 4 now, and we're going to be looking at the 3 common manifestations of self that we look at in a step 4, which means we're going to look at resentment, and we're going to look at fear, and we're going to look at sex conduct. Okay? And that is why I need to look at sex conduct. Because when it comes to guilt and when it comes to shame, nothing holds us in bondage of self more than sex conduct. Misshapen, instinctual, run wild sex conduct. Now, I will say for some people, and our book is clear, and we're going to read through it right now. I just want to say some people would have us on a straight pepper diet, and some would give us no flavor for our fare. I have listened to hundreds of step fives. I can tell you that not all alcoholics are the same when it comes to sex. Some have a very, very misshapen sex conduct that they feel very, very terrible about and have gone really far in one direction, and others less so. Okay. But the one thing that our book does say is that we all have sex problems. We all have sex problems. We'd hardly be human if we didn't. Okay. And that was very important for me. I could show you where I was sitting. The memory is so powerful of where I was when I sat with my sponsor, and he pointed out that line in the book. We all have sex problems. And when he showed me that, there was a level of peace that I felt in knowing that I wasn't alone. I wasn't alone, and that we all have sex problems. We'd hardly be human if we didn't, is what Bill Wilson says. Okay. So, so I think those are the two reasons why we look at sex conduct. Number one, because it really allows us to see how our defects hurt people. And we need to learn that. We have to get honest about that. There is no humility without it. There is no humility without it. Okay. And number two, because the guilt and the shame that some of us feel and most of us feel when we bring our sex conduct to God, a lot of that has us tied up in a bondage of self from which there is no escape. And we need to talk about it. We need to get it out. We need to be honest about it. And we need to stop feeling fear and guilt and shame and all that stuff that can be tied to our sex conduct. Okay. So with that said, Vincent, if you would be kind enough, bottom of page 68, now about sex, let's rock and roll.
Thanks, Kevin. Many of us needed an overhauling there, but above all, we tried to be sensible on this question. It's so easy to get way off the track. Here we find human opinions running to extremes, absurd extremes, perhaps. One set of voices cry that sex is a lust of our lower nature, a base necessity for procreation. Then we have the voices who cry for sex and more sex, who bewail the institution of marriage, who think that most of the troubles of the race are traceable to sex causes. They think we do not have enough of it, or that it isn't the right kind. They see its significance everywhere. One school would allow man to flavor for his fare, or one school would allow man no flavor for his fare, and the other would have us all on a straight pepper diet. We want to stay out of this controversy. We do not want to be the arbiter of anyone's sex conduct. We all have sex problems. We'd hardly be human if we didn't. What can we do about them? We reviewed our own conduct over the years past. Where had we been selfish, dishonest, or inconsiderate? Whom had we hurt? Did we unjustifiably arouse jealousy, suspicion, or bitterness? Where were we at fault? What should we have done instead? We got this all down on paper and looked at it.
Okay, so we're going to pause there, Vincent. Okay, so we actually just read all 4 columns. Okay, and I'm going to say that sex conduct, although it can be harder to talk about some of it in step 5, and there can be some embarrassment about talking about it to a stranger or our sponsor, and there can be some real deep, painful shame about certain things. And by the way, while I'm on this topic, I think it's very important to talk about, and I'm not shy to talk about sexual abuse or sexual assault or anything like that. Okay, I think it's well to talk about it. I don't necessarily talk about it from the podium if I speak at a conference, but this is the 4th Dimension Big Book study, and people are here to get well. And I was not able to get well until somebody was willing to talk to me about things like sexual abuse or sexual assault, without feeling squeamish or getting awkward or whatever. So let me tell you, in a step 4 inventory, let there be no mistake. We do not put sexual abuse or sexual assault in our sex conduct inventory. Where does sexual abuse and sexual assault belong? It belongs in our resentment inventory. Okay. Who do I resent? Column 1. The person that did that to me. Column 1. Okay. Column 2. Why? Obviously. Okay. And so on. When we're talking about our sex conduct, column 1 is simply who have we hurt by our own conduct. Okay. And again, there may be varying levels of this. Some of us may have many people that we feel we've hurt with our conduct. Some of us, I've had sponsees, I had a sponsee who had only ever been with one woman, and that was it. Okay. And they had they had sex conduct, but he didn't really feel, so there wasn't a lot there. Okay. And it's not that they didn't have a straight pepper relationship, but he had only ever been with one woman and never really strayed out from that. And that's fine. That was his inventory. And then I've heard others that were, a lot more pepper. Like cayenne pepper, like straight sriracha sauce on the ghost pepper. Okay, like spicy jalapeno poppers. Okay, like crazy stuff and whatever. Okay, your inventory is your inventory, but I want to be clear: sexual abuse and the resentment from that, and the victimization that we feel from that, goes in the resentment inventory. Does that make sense, you guys? And I'm sharing with you my experience in doing that, and I'm sharing with you the experience of like dozens and dozens of people that I have helped with these types of inventories. Okay. And same with sexual assault. Sexual assault, God love you for it, and I'm so sorry if anything like that ever happened to you. Resentment inventory. Sex conduct, we're talking strictly about people that we believe we've harmed through our behavior. Column 1, who did we hurt? Here, I'm going to share this again. So this is the fear inventory. Rather, column 1 would be who did we hurt? Okay. So on page 69, we're looking here. It says, whom had we hurt? That's the question. Whom had we hurt? Column 1. Column 2. How did we harm them? Column 1, who did we hurt? Column 2, how did we harm them? What did I do? Okay. And again, bullet points. We don't want to go into long, description of everything. Try to keep it short bullet points, 19 words maximum, just as it is on page 65 in our book, where we're talking about Mr. Brown and my wife and my employer and so on. Okay. Column 1, who did we hurt? Column 2, how did we harm them? Number 3, where it says, did we unjustifiably, where had we been selfish, dishonest, or inconsiderate? Did we unjustifiably arouse jealousy, suspicion, or bitterness? So that's column 3. Column 3 again says, where had we been selfish? I'm reading on page 69 now. Where had we been selfish, dishonest, or inconsiderate? Did we unjustifiably arouse jealousy, suspicion, or bitterness? Now, I'm going to share with you guys something that really blew my mind a while ago. I realized, and God, I am a teacher of the big book, but I am also a student of the big book. Okay. And as I change, it changes. And as I evolve, it evolves. Okay. And I want you to know that I have been reading and teaching one of these lines, I believe, incorrectly for many years. Okay. I used to think that where it said, did we unjustifiably arouse jealousy, suspicion, or bitterness? I used to think that meant in the person that I harmed, did I arouse jealousy, suspicion, or bitterness in them? I now believe it is far more powerful for me to look at, did I unjustifiably arouse jealousy, suspicion, or bitterness in myself? Did I become jealous, suspicious, and bitter in this relationship? Oh, yes. Okay. Bill Wilson calls jealousy the most terrible of all human emotions. Jealousy is disgusting. I know, I lived in it for a long time. Okay. I used to be the type of man that was so jealous in relationships because I was so scared. I was so scared that I would get insanely jealous and try to control. You you guys know Lululemon? Maybe some of y'all in the States won't know Lululemon, but the company, like the athletic company, they have a great saying. I don't know if I saw it on one of their posters or a sports bag or something. It said, jealousy works the opposite way you want it to. How brilliant is that? Jealousy works the opposite way you want it to. When I'm jealous, what do I want? I want this person, woman that I was jealous of. I want her. And yet being jealous worked the opposite way that I wanted it to. It's brilliant. So that line, column 3, where have I been selfish, dishonest, or inconsiderate in this relationship with this person that I harmed? Okay. And it's not always like I committed some criminal sexual act. It's like, did I tell lies to get what I wanted? Did I lie to get what I wanted? Where have I been dishonest? Did I tell lies to manipulate someone into doing something that they wouldn't normally have done if the reality were known? Did I lie about that? Was I selfish? Was I thinking only of myself? I'm a self-seeker even when trying to be kind. So even when I was being romantic and nice and, all that stuff, was I thinking of them or was I thinking of what I could steal, man? Okay. Was I really trying to think about making an investment here in this human being and their feelings? Or was I just trying to shoplift what I wanted? Okay. Somebody read the other day, they said, a psychopath is someone who has no capacity or understanding of the interior feelings of other human beings. And man, I did not like hearing that. Okay. Because I have been capable at times of my life of not caring about the interior feelings of other human beings. Okay. I am not that man anymore, but holy smokes. I know for a fact, I can tell you that I am not a psychopath. I know that. I've had the test. Okay. That's fine. Okay. But man, that definition to have that always gets a laugh every time I say that. I don't know. They've updated the test since I took it last time. So I don't know. I have no capacity for the interior feeling of other human beings. Man, I did not love hearing that. I have capacity for it. I can just turn it off and turn it on when I want to. That's like Jesus. Anyway, that's selfish in these sexual relationships, okay? And then did I unjustifiably arouse jealousy, suspicion, or bitterness? Did I become jealous? Did I become bitter? Did I become suspicious? Suspicious. Did I harm people with this suspiciousness? Did I harm people with my bitterness? All of these things, we needed to let it sort it out and get it down. Okay. And so there is a prayer that's going to come between column 3 and column 4, as there always is. Column 4, though, simply is, it says, where we were at fault, what should we have done instead? So that's column 4. What should I have done instead? Okay. 95% of the time when I look at my sex conduct in my life, when I look at what should I have done instead, the answer is simple. I just shouldn't have done it. I shouldn't have been in that relationship in the first place. I knew, and I knew it. I knew I shouldn't have done it, and I did it anyway. I knew, I saw the red flags. I knew that this was a bad idea, and I did it anyway. You guys remember back when we read about Jim? Jim's the car salesman who goes, he puts the whiskey on the milk. Remember that guy? Okay. And he says, remember that line? He vaguely sensed he wasn't being too smart. Okay. that someday is going to be written on my tombstone. Okay. Kevin Olson, dead, vaguely sensed, in quotes, vaguely sensed he wasn't being too smart. Okay. Until, you, and we do this a lot in relationships. Okay. I vaguely sense I'm not being too smart, but man, she looks great in that dress. Okay. Okay. I heard another speaker call it, he referred to it as the blondage of self, right? I thought that was a funny joke, right? We just get blinded by it. Okay. And we just get in trouble. So what should I have done instead? I should have listened. That voice, that niggling little voice that's saying, maybe not a great idea, Kevo. Brothers and sisters, whose voice do you think that is? G-O-D. That voice that tells me, Kevin, right, wrong. That is God. Okay? That is God. At its simplest, God's will, right, wrong. I know what it is. I knew what I should have done, and I didn't do it. I knew I shouldn't have done it, and I did it anyway. Where was I at fault? What should I have done instead? What should I have done instead? I just shouldn't have done it. Or, there's a bunch of different ways we can look at it. I knew I shouldn't have done it, and I did it anyway. That's the majority of step 4 sex conduct for me. Okay. So now, what do we do? What do we want to become? Well, let's read the next paragraph. Okay. And we're going to finish up here in just a couple of minutes. So can you please, Vincent, read us out to the end of the to the end of the book, to the end of the chapter, rather.
Absolutely, Kevin. We reviewed our own conduct over the years past. Where had we been selfish, dishonest, or inconsiderate? Whom did we hurt? Did we unjustifiably arouse jealousy, suspicion, or bitterness? Where were we at fault? What should have we done instead? We got this all down on paper and looked at it. In this way, we tried to shape a sane and sound ideal of our future sex life. We subjected each relation to this test. Was it selfish or not? We asked God to mold our ideals and help us to live up to them. We remembered always that our sex powers were God-given and therefore good, neither to be used lightly or selfishly, nor to be despised and loathed. Whatever our ideal turns out to be, we must be willing to grow toward it.
Okay, so I'm going to pause you here, Vincent. We just read the step 4 sex prayer. Okay, and that is we asked God to mold our ideals and to help us to live up to them. That's it. God, please mold my ideals and help me to live up to them. Okay, and I have to say that prayer before I can start looking at column 4. I have to say that prayer and let God start molding my ideals and then showing me how I can live up to them and giving me his power to live up to them. And, I had no idea what an ideal sex conduct. I didn't even know what that meant. Ideal. I don't know. What's ideal? I don't know. Every day and twice on Saturdays. That's my ideal sex conduct. Yeah, I had no idea. And I've come to learn, and I didn't know what that meant. I didn't know what the ideal sex conduct was until my sponsor told me what his was. And he didn't tell me this is what mine had to be. He just shared with me, Kevin, this is mine. And his was no sex outside of a committed relationship. And I knew as soon as he said it, it just clicked over inside. I knew. I've known since I know. Just as there is deep down within every man, woman, and child is the fundamental idea of God, deep down within me, there has always been the idea and the knowledge that my ideal sex conduct is no sex outside of a committed relationship. I know that. I just don't like it. And so I would go and do and live in self-will and all this stuff and cause a bunch of harm and hurt a bunch of people and come back and feel terrible about doing that. And that's, people, Russell Spatz, one of my favorite speakers, he says, if you feel guilty, it's because you're guilty, right? If you feel guilty, it's because you've committed a crime. That's why you feel guilt. Okay. And it's not pleasurable, and it's a God-given emotion that we get to tell us when we're off base. And so I hurt a lot of people because I wasn't living in God's will, and I wasn't living on my God-given sex ideal. So we ask God to mold our ideals and to help us to live up to them. Okay. So back to you, Vincent.
We must be willing to make amends where we have done harm, provided that we do not bring about still more harm in so doing. In other words, we treat sex as we would any other problem. In meditation, we ask God what we should do about each specific matter. The right answer will come if we want it. God alone can judge our sex situation. Counsel with persons is often desirable, but we let God be the final judge. We realize that some people are as fanatical about sex as others are loose. We avoid hysterical thinking or advice. Suppose we fall short of the chosen ideal and stumble. Does this mean we are going to get drunk? For some people, tell us so, but this is only a half truth. It depends on us and on our motives. If we are sorry for what we have done and have the honest desire to let God take us to better things, we believe we will be forgiven and we will have learned our lesson. If we are not sorry and our conduct continues to harm others, we are quite sure to drink. We are not theorizing. These are facts out of our experience.
Okay, so listen, guys, this is how serious this is. Okay, there's only 2 spots in our book where it says if you don't do this, you're going to drink. One is if I don't change my sex conduct, and the other is in step 5. If I don't do my step 5, our book says we're quite likely to drink. We'll come up with that next week. Here, if I don't change my sex conduct, I am quite sure to drink. Okay, that's what our book says. Now, I will tell you that there was a period of time in my sobriety where I did not change my sex conduct. And I continued to cause harm. And I'm sorry to say that, but that's the truth. I was physically sober in Alcoholics Anonymous, and my sex conduct didn't change. And I continued to harm people. And I can tell you that I did not drink, but I will tell you, like, I suffered in ways that I did not know were possible. Okay? There is absolutely no way to live in that type of a way against God's will and not have it impact your life at some point down the road. It's going to happen. And so I suffered greatly in untreated alcoholism, in living in selfish, self-centered self-will, and thinking that the rules don't apply to me, I can get away with it, so on and so forth. And that, of course, just is false. It's just not true. Okay. So that's how important this is. It's also how important it is for me to know what my sex conduct is. Okay. My bottom line sex conduct. And I say to my sponsees, if you cannot summarize what your ideal sex conduct is to me in one sentence, then you don't have one. And I think it needs to be that simple, because if I have a multi-tiered sex conduct thing, well, guess what? When I'm with her on the couch watching the movie, and I'm going to be like, okay, well, and I'm not going to, I need to have a crystal clear sex conduct, what it is. No sex outside of a committed relationship, period. That's what it is for me, guys. I'm not saying what it is for you. I'm saying I needed to know exactly what mine is, because this is how dangerous this is. Anything above that line, and I'm fine. Anything below that line, what did we just read? Quite sure to drink. Okay? I need to know what that is. I'm not telling you I know what yours is. what we just said is that we ask for guidance in each specific matter. We allow God to mold our sex ideals and to help us to live up to them. But this is how important this is. I need to know what my bottom line is, what is okay, what is not okay. And I also need to check it out with a sponsor. Okay, because my estimation of what might be okay, what might not be okay, may not be real. And so it's always important for me to check these out with someone else and let them help kind of guide my, give me a little bit of clarity, a little bit of guidance. Okay. Does that make sense, you guys? So it is part of doing a step 4 sex inventory is that when I am finished, I have a sex ideal. As I shared with you, mine, I'm not sure what yours is, but I do believe that I am not finished a step 4 sex inventory until I know what my God-given sex ideal is. Okay? Now, one last thing I want to share with you guys about this, and I know we're over time and I appreciate you guys. You may down the road have a sponsee who has massive problems with sex, straight pepper diet, okay? And you may see them swear off and say, I'm not going to do these things anymore. I'm not going to live that way. And then a month later, they're coming back to you telling you that they're living that way again. And they may say pornography is no longer part of something I want to be a part of. And then a week later, they're using pornography again. Or maybe it's other online things, or maybe it's even sex trade workers, or so on and so on and so on. If that is the case, I want you to know that this may not be something that just step 6 and 7 can solve. They may have another addiction outside the realm of Alcoholics Anonymous. Sex addiction is a real thing, and there is great recovery for sex addiction. Okay? Sex Addicts Anonymous, Sexaholics Anonymous, Sex and Love Addicts Anonymous, so on and so forth. I want you to keep in mind that at some point down the road, you may be working with a sponsee who needs to be gently guided to one of those meetings. Okay. And just doing another 4 step and another 5th step, another 6 and 7 and 8 and 9 and 10, 11, 12 in Alcoholics Anonymous is not the answer for them. Taking step 1 in Sex Addicts Anonymous might be the answer for them. Okay, so just be mindful of that when you're talking about sex conduct with your sponsees, and when you're listening to them, and if there's a repetition of a certain behavior that they're trying to stop and they can't stop. Okay, just be mindful of that. Okay, you guys with me on that? Yeah. Okay, very good, you guys. All right, Vincent, let's take it out to the end of the paragraph. Thank you. To the end of the chapter.
Thanks, Kevin. To sum up about sex, we earnestly pray for the right ideal, for guidance in each questionable situation, for sanity and for strength to do the right thing. If sex is very troublesome, we throw ourselves the harder into helping others. We think of their needs and work for them. This takes us out of ourselves. It quiets the imperious urge when to yield would mean heartache. If we have been thorough about our personal inventory, we have written down a lot. We have listed and analyzed our resentments. We have begun to comprehend their futility and their fatality. We have commenced to see their terrible destructiveness. We have begun to learn tolerance, patience, and goodwill toward all men, even our enemies, for we look on them as sick people. We have listed the people we have hurt by our conduct and are willing to straighten out the past if we can. In this book, you will read again and again that faith did for us what we could not do for ourselves. We hope you are convinced now that God can remove whatever self-will has blocked you off from him. If you have already made a decision and an inventory of your grosser handicaps, you have made a good beginning. That being so, you have swallowed and digested some of the big chunks of truth about yourself.
Beautiful stuff, Vincent. Thank you, man. Thank you. And again, we see it there again. Okay. Blocked. blocking us from God. And this is the purpose of AA, is not to add something. It's to uncover, discover, and discard the things, okay? To discard, uncover, and discover who we really are, okay? It's like that line with Michelangelo, he talked about the statue of David. And they said, how did you make this statue? And he said, God put David into that block, into that rock. I just took away everything that wasn't David. Okay. This is what we do in AA, and we get to really find out who we are. We get to really truly know and find and discover ourselves, and maybe even like ourselves. Imagine that. Imagine that. Okay. Imagine liking who we are. What a beautiful thing. So, okay, brothers and sisters, that's it. So next week we'll talk about steps 5, 6, and 7. We'll talk about how we do that and how we'll read through the book, and we'll talk about how we do a step 5, how we both present a step 5 and how we receive a step 5, how we listen to one. So